Get going. Hello. Okay, this looks like a good place to go ahead and start. I see so many new faces, and that is so exciting. My name is Kelly Howe. Thank you for coming to learn about EFT. Has anybody in here know about EFT at all? Raise your hands a little bit. Okay, yeah. So show of hands who's actually tried it on themselves. Awesome. Yeah, good stuff. So I call EFT the unexpected pathway to peace for a couple of reasons. Number one, because if you had told me 11 years ago that I would be in a private practice working with clients, teaching them how to tap on their body to help their stress, I would have laughed you out of the room and probably thrown in some profanity just to make a point, because there's no way in anything that I thought that I would be doing this. And the other reason that I say it's unexpected is that our minds are designed to be skeptical and to reject things that we don't understand. It's part of our survival mechanism. So when we see something, we learn about something like tapping, and even if we get ourselves on board and we're like, yes, I tried it, it's amazing, and then we try to tell someone else about it, and they kind of glaze over or just kind of start walking away or, tell you you're crazy. Sometimes that happens. I want you to just know that even when you start to learn about this, if people don't understand, that is part of their survival mechanism, okay? The best thing that we can do is use it for ourselves and educate wherever people are ready to listen. You guys are ready to listen, and I love that. I love teaching this. So the first thing we're going to do is actually go in and talk a little bit about stress and what's actually happening in the brain and the body and why it's such a big deal. I really truly believe that stress is an epidemic right now. We have all kinds of environmental stressors out there. We've got toxins in our food. We've got, electromagnetic fields that our bodies weren't designed to be in all these electromagnetic fields and Wi-Fi and all that. There's just a lot out there. We have social media. We have constant news coverage. And no matter what your belief system is about how a human got here on Earth, I think we can all agree that 200,000 years ago, when it was the earliest version of a human, it didn't look like this in the world. When there was threat, it was usually because you were actually being chased. You were actually in imminent danger. And so our bodies are designed to sense the environment, to sense danger, and go into fight or flight to get away. Anymore, we don't really have the same, environmental stressors. Go ahead, come on in, guys. We just got started. And feel free to turn those chairs around there so you don't, I don't expect you to see with the back of your head. But I think we can all agree that the world that we live in today looks completely different than what a human was designed to live in, okay? So now we're not being chased by tigers or bears. There's really not famine. I know places in the world there are, but for you guys here in the Midwest, most of us have food and water. But our bodies are designed to go into this alarm state when things feel dangerous. So sometimes it's not real danger, but we're going into fight or flight because we read an email, or something stressful at work happens, or you're flipping through your social media and seeing pictures of everyone's kids and feeling so good, and then all of a sudden you see that there was a mass shooting. Boom, right? And how often are we being bombarded by that? I mean, it is really an epidemic, and we have to have a way to manage it, or we're not going to do very well. I can speak from experience that this technique can change your life. I wouldn't be standing here if it hadn't changed mine. I have worked as a nurse for 10 years, and although I loved being a nurse, I love patient care. I delivered babies for 8 years. Loved it. But it was hard. Do we have any nurses in here? Yeah, man, that's a hard job. We love it, right? But it's challenging. And I like to joke that I nursed for 10 years, 9.5 years of it, I think I was completely burned out. Doing night shift. It was really, really hard on my body. I now understand myself better, and I understand that I have a very sensitive nervous system, and I'm a little bit of a stress case. So not only do I have my own stress, but I was taking on the stress of all the people around me too. Okay, I'll do that. Sure, I'll do that. No problem. I got it. I'll do it. No problem. Right? So I just kept taking on and taking on and taking on and taking on, and I just got more burned out and more burned out and more burned out. And I'm sure that I see some heads nodding like, yep, been there, right? Went into full-on adrenal fatigue, had to take hormone replacement for a few years to get myself back on track. I had no appetite, was losing weight without trying. I was stressed to the point where, in my mind, I was like, I'm fine, right? I'm good. I'm all right. I've always been laid back. I got this. But my body would shake. I was completely disconnected from all the stress that was in my life. Until I just got to a breaking point where I couldn't do it anymore. And I was lashing out on people, and I wasn't my cool, calm, collected, normal self. I was kind of a shit show. Sorry, the language, but that is really the best way to describe it. I just wasn't myself. I was like spinning in my head all the time. I was shaky, didn't want to eat, kind of angry. I'm not an angry person, but I was. And I had a God moment, a surrender moment, where I laid in bed crying. And it always makes me want to cry when I think about that, because it was such a painful moment. If you've been there, I'm sure some of you have. And I said, okay, if there's something up there, I promise I will do anything. Anything. I will do anything. And just a couple days later, series of events, and I start getting emails about tapping, this tapping thing in my inbox. And I looked at it as a nurse, and I laughed, and I was like, they're saying that can help anxiety and pain and all this stuff, and I'm a nurse, I would totally know about that if it was real. And I kind of ignored the first email. By the time I got like 2 or 3 of them, I remembered that surrender moment, and I was like, oh. So I tried it, and it worked. Okay? Unexpected indeed, but it worked fast. And then something clicked with me, and I could feel myself feeling better, and I had to learn as much as I could about it. I travel all over the country, going to workshops and trainings so that I can be here in the Midwest to teach you guys this information. Tapping works on so many different things. In the industry we say try it on anything. If you feel something, try it. Why not? Why not? Because it works on so much. Ooh, I'm getting a weird feedback. We can decrease stress and worry, eliminate cravings, chronic pain even. There is some emotional component to all pain. I don't care what physical ailment you have, there is some emotional component, especially if you've had it for a long time. Is there going to be sadness? Yup. Is there going to be frustration and anger? Yes. Grief? There's all kinds of emotions in there. So even if you've had something and you have a very, a firm diagnosis, like I know I have this pinched in my back, it's still worth trying, because even if you can reduce your pain 20% just by moving the emotional component out so that you can feel hopeful again, it's worth doing. But I have seen amazing things happen with pain. Sports performance, confidence. A very interesting side effect of dealing with your stress is that you actually just feel confident to be you. It's pretty cool. I didn't expect that when I started tapping. And then all of a sudden, after a year, I was like, man, I just feel okay being in my skin. This is different, just a different feeling. Procrastination even. One of the most exciting things with tapping is that they're doing a lot of studies for PTSD. And this stuff is really rocking people's world, because it is working, and it is working really fast. There was a study recently, actually it's probably been in the last 4 years, where they did a study with vets, and 86% of them, after 6 sessions, did not test to have clinical PTSD. Ooh, that's crazy. I don't know of anything else that's doing that. It is really exciting stuff. So you can try it on the little things, the little annoying things, like my husband left his socks on the kitchen counter. You can tap on that. Tappable, done it many times. He knows I joke about this, by the way. But yeah, it goes all the way into really complex PTSD. Now, I don't personally work with that because it's outside of my scope of practice as an RN. But there are people, and tapping, you can do it over the phone, you can do it over Skype. So if you have PTSD, you know somebody that has PTSD, there are people all over the country, all over the world doing this that are amazing. There's therapists, psychologists, all kinds of people. So you feel like this gal sometimes? I do. Not so much anymore, sometimes. Maybe that guy. On the outside, we're like, yeah, I'm good. And on the inside, we're like, I want to eat you. Yeah. So we already talked about, what's a big part of this big problem is that our environment just doesn't look like it used to. The stimulus is going up like crazy, right? Just constant information coming in, and it's not usually good information. Bad news everywhere, and it gets to us really fast and has the ability to turn on that fight or flight instantly, okay? There's something that goes on in the brain, and I'm going to paint this in a very simplistic picture, but the brain is really complex. The nervous system, obviously, is very complex, and even if you talk to the most brilliant researchers, scientists that study consciousness in the brain, they will look at you and be like, you know what, we don't actually know. So I'm going to talk about what we do know, what we kind of see going on with tapping, but know that we are just starting to understand the brain in general and understand how consciousness affects our brain and our body. But this is just where we are and what we understand now, and it's pretty interesting stuff. So we have in the brain this little tiny, it's about the size of an almond, deep down in the center of the brain, little part of the brain called the amygdala, okay? And the amygdala, I like to think of it like a little gargoyle or like a watchdog that sits in there, and its job is to really sense when there's something dangerous, okay? So it sits in there and just watches for any sort of signs in the environment that something's dangerous. The amygdala, if it senses something that seems to be very dangerous, has the ability to override the cortex of the brain, and specifically this frontal cortex. So this is the part of the brain where we do our rational thinking, okay? So if you're flipping through social media and all of a sudden something sends you into fight or flight, the blood is actually draining out of that frontal cortex, going to the hindbrain, putting you in a very primal, defensive, I want to fight for my life, I want to run, or I'm going to freeze because this feels really not safe, okay? And is it a problem if we're not in our rational thinking brain? I kind of think so. I think that's a problem. But it also starts to make sense, right? Like when you feel that fight or flight. Like how many of us, I know I have, like how many people have sat down to take a test and all the information is just gone? Ooh. I mean, like I had no skills, no tools to deal with that when I was in high school. But I would be fine. I would study. I would come and sit down, and then it was just like, gone. And I'm like, I almost can't even read right now. What has happened to me? And that now I understand. I'm like, oh, I was afraid, probably of failing, maybe afraid of my teacher. I don't know. Who knows? But that rational thinking part of our brain goes offline. Very interesting. That's also why when you are around somebody who is in fight or flight, try not to rationalize with them too long. I mean, there's a degree that you can, but other strategies for them to help bring their stress down is going to work better than actually trying to say calm down. Ooh, don't ever do that. We learned that in the hospital, right? Like if somebody's combative or angry, you never say calm down. So I don't know why we feel like we can do that to our spouses, right? Or to ourselves even, right? Like you're freaking out and all of a sudden you're like, calm down, come on, get yourself together. That never works. Maybe not never. Usually not. So, again, with this modern world, the toxins in our food supply, the pollution out there also has the ability to make our body feel not safe and send us into that fight or flight response. Okay. That's a really fuzzy picture. I tried to find something better, but that little green part is the amygdala in there. That's the little watchdog that's like, what's going on, what's going on? Something really interesting about the amygdala. Our brain and our body, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit, we actually perceive the world through our senses, right? Our 5 senses. And all of those senses are coming into our body, and we are perceiving them because of energy. So it's vibration, sound, touch. There's some sort of energy that's being communicated from our environment into our body. And they have recently done studies that I think is so fascinating, where they have people close their eyes, and they put them in an fMRI, and they have someone stand behind them and stare at them. Okay? They can't see it. They even have their eyes closed. And the amygdala will still react like it's dangerous. So we are sensing things in different ways. I mean, we are proving that over and over and over again. So when people say this energy stuff is woo-woo, I'm like, you're woo-woo. Everything is energy. I'm missing that somehow. I don't get that. But those kinds of studies show us, like, it is picking up on something else, you know? Our eyes aren't open, and our brain is still reacting. It knows when someone's staring at us. It's really interesting. So we talked about this. The amygdala is that internal alarm, sending us into fight, flight, or freeze. And freeze, by the way, I don't talk about that enough, but the freeze response, you know, we can either fight, we can run, or we can try to make ourselves invisible. So if you're somebody who, when you get really stressed out, you're like sitting in a chair, paralyzed, you might be a freezer. You know, that's a very debilitating feeling, to be like, why do I feel like I'm actually stuck in my body? Like, I know I could get up, but I can't. It's very debilitating. Important to note that if you are going into fight or flight, your body and your mind is actually doing its job correctly. It's trying to protect you. Okay? So our job, and what makes tapping so wonderful, is the very investigative process of why? Why is my body not feeling safe? Okay? And what can I do to make it feel safe? Thoughts alone can trigger the amygdala, can trigger all kinds of things in our brain. So when you close your eyes, again, if they put you into a brain scan and you're visualizing, your visual cortex, all that visual area lights up in your brain as if you're actually looking at something. Okay, so our brain has a really difficult time telling between what's actually happening and what we're imagining. So when we are in our worry state and we're imagining all these terrible things happening, it's just feeding that loop, right? Like all those images that we're creating. Before I had tapping, I was terrified of driving on the highway, and I was just afraid that a semi was gonna like come and run me off the road. And I would, in my head, create these terrible scenes, right? And now I look at it and I'm like, well, no wonder I was so stressed and anxious, right? Because I was using that imagination power, but creating a really ugly story. So just having that awareness alone, it's like, wow, my thoughts can actually kick me full on into fight or flight. You know, kind of makes us go, okay, maybe I could imagine something different, right? And I play with that now when I start creating bad stories, and you guys can do this. It's like, ooh, I just saw this horrible thing in my head. Well, what if it all went really well? And I visualize what that looks like. And you can instantly feel a difference in how that feels. Again, we talked about this. The cortex gets deactivated, which is where we do our thinking, reasoning, rational thinking. It's the logical part of our brain. We'd really like that to be online. But if we're too stressed, it's not. I've heard estimates that 70% of the blood from that frontal area of your brain drains out. When we go into fight or flight, the blood actually drains out of our brain, goes into our muscles, so that we can do that fighting or running if we need to. Blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, blood sugar, inflammation, blood supply to the muscles goes up. So you kind of start to see why they say that 5 of the 6 top reasons for death is caused by stress. We need to see that list, right? The other thing that happens is the immune function goes down. So when we're pumping blood to our muscles, it goes away from the gut. Your body does not care about digesting food if it thinks that you're running from a tiger. It just doesn't care. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's like, that's not important right now. I need to run. Your liver, and there's different mechanisms that's pumping your blood sugar up so that you have access to that energy, but it's not actually digesting anything. Immune function, same thing. Your body doesn't care about fighting a virus if it thinks it's going to die in 2 seconds. It just doesn't care. Doesn't care. So does it start to make sense why 60 to 90% of all doctor's visits are related to stress? Does that paint a pretty clear picture? It's like, whoa, no wonder I'd say that this is an epidemic, right? Like, we are really sick. And when we can start dealing with this stress in a really directed way and be an investigator of like what created this story for me, man, things can change really quickly. When you string that together with the dietary stuff that Dr. Sarah Godfrey's talking about, I mean, life-changing differences. So usually we can relate. Like every once in a while we'll be triggered into that like heart racing, palms sweating. You just feel nervous and anxious and you have absolutely no idea why. Like nothing happened, what's wrong with me? And I would bet you $1 million it's because that amygdala sensed something in the environment. It can be a sound. It can be a smell. So if you've had something, for example, this is an example I see come up sometimes. People, it's like, oh, I don't know, I just, like, out of the blue, I'm just totally going into this state. And smells, right? Like, I got a phone call that my mom died and that candle was burning. And our body is designed to remember these things, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So it could be anything in the environment. It can be barometric pressure. I mean, it knows. Your subconscious remembers everything, and your amygdala and some portion of your brain is picking up on it, and it remembers, and it has coded it as not safe. So we've talked about the brain and the body. Now we're going to move into talking, you can put the brain in a box. It's like a thing. It's kind of easier to understand, even though we still don't really understand it. But the mind is this thing, consciousness, It's all of our thinking. It's all of our stored information. And what's really interesting to me is that, if you think of the mind like an iceberg, like we've got there, they say that the conscious mind is really only about 5% of our thinking. The rest of it is subconscious, which means below the awareness. 95% of our thinking is going on below our awareness. How crazy is that? Isn't that a little scary? Like, I remember when I learned that, I was like, what? What? I don't even know. 95% of my own thoughts? That's weird. Freaky, So the subconscious records everything that's ever happened to you, and it is designed to remember everything so that it can help keep you safe. So things particularly that get stored in the subconscious mind are traumas, big and small, doesn't matter what it is, memories, belief systems. So everything that you learn when you're a kid, what you believe because of your experiences, that gets stored in that subconscious mind. So what happens a lot of times is I see people and they consciously change their beliefs, and they believe something, and when we go down and we do this like very deep uncovering, we find parts of us that still believe something totally different. It's kind of strange. Automatic habits. So when you're a baby and you're learning to walk, it's a very conscious, you're like, you see them thinking, they have to think like this, I'm doing something, And then after they figure it out, it goes to the subconscious. It's now an automatic program. None of us have to think about walking, ever. It's just in there, right? It is totally in there. So I like to give this example when people, and I'm a huge believer in positive thinking and affirmations and that kind of thing. But when I see people trying to shift their beliefs by just saying, I believe something different, it doesn't work like that. That would be like looking at your body and being like, forget to walk. Forget. Just let it go. It doesn't happen that way. It is designed to hold on and remember. For good reason. We don't want to forget to walk. But it also remembers these traumas in the same way. Okay? So, for example, if you, people that have had car accidents, even if they're not big car accidents, when you go through that, your body remembers everything about it. So who here, has anybody had a car accident and then, like, the next time you got in the car, it was like you just couldn't do it? I know I have. Yeah. It remembers everything. It remembers that motion of like slowing down. If you swerve, it remembers that. And then it's possible that every time you feel that in the future, you go into fight or flight. It's designed to remember because it's trying to keep you safe. Luckily, we have tapping and it really deprograms this stuff. So it gets locked into place, of course, because it's supposed to. It's designed to do that. Neurons that fire together wire together, popular saying in neuroscience. The more you think about something, the more it gets wired into your neural pathways. Okay? Information, everything that happens to you between 0 and 7, and they're saying now even in the womb, is recorded on some level in the subconscious mind. Okay? When we're little, we are mostly in a brainwave state of theta. And what makes that significant is that is the same state that a hypnotherapist is going to take you to try to reprogram your subconscious mind. So when we're kids, we go into that theta state very, very often, which puts us in a state of just downloading everything that's around us. everything that happens to us, the beliefs of our parents, beliefs of other people around you. So you just download information, and it's in there, okay? It is, of course, we talked about this, designed to hold on to perceived traumatic events as well. We'll talk about that stuff in a minute. So when we're going to start talking about how to use tapping to rewrite this stuff. Important to know that, again, you cannot rationalize with the amygdala. When your hindbrain is activated and you're in fight or flight, the parts of your brain that are working on senses. They're not working in language. Okay? So this is why body techniques like tapping, like EMDR, even doing yoga can help kind of reprogram this stuff. Because when you use the body through all the senses, you're actually speaking the language of the amygdala. It's wonderful, right? We've all been there where it's like we talk about something, we move it through, it feels really, really good. But it doesn't process it as deeply if you're not doing some sort of body work with it. EFT is wonderful because it communicates with all the senses at the same time. So it connects the mind and the body in 3 ways. And the process is going to involve recalling a negative thought or a feeling. So this can be an emotion, this can be a memory. You can use it in a lot of different ways. A worry, if it's just something that you're worried about. You're going to stimulate these key acupoints. It's going to send a calming signal through the nervous system into the brain. Okay? As you do that, it's going to deactivate the response. When you tap on these points and you're thinking about something and it's activating it through the brain, you're tapping on these points, which is sending a signal through your nervous system, sending energy through your nervous system, and it starts to calm those brain waves down. Okay? So it's a deactivating system. I always include this because this is just such a good example that sums it up. David Feinstein is a psychologist that has been studying tapping for about 20 years now. He went into tapping like most people. He was sitting at a conference for psychologists, and they started talking about this tapping thing, and he was like, this must be like a study that they're doing on how gullible psychologists can be. I mean, he really was like, this is crazy. But then they did it on someone. I think it was a fear of heights. It was a phobia of some sort. Oh, no, it was a fear of the dark. And they used this tapping, and within 5 minutes, this person went from a 10 of fear down to a 0. It was gone. And he was blown away. So for 20 years, he's been pumping out really high-quality studies that constantly prove over and over again that this works. And not just works, it works really, really well and faster than most other therapies. Oh, wait, let me read it to you. Okay. Bringing to mind an emotional trigger, problematic scene, or unresolved traumatic memory activates the amygdala, arousing a threat response. Stimulating selected acupoints simultaneously sends deactivating signals to the amygdala. Repetition of the arousal while the trigger is still mentally active. The hippocampus records that memory or trigger as being safely engaged without a stress response. Okay? Does that make sense? It's like, this used to freak me out, now it didn't. Just turning off that switch. The goal, of course, is to, oh yes, this is an important part of it. So the neural pathways that initiate the associated stress response are permanently altered. Permanently. So this isn't, when you do this technique correctly on a memory that's been plaguing you your entire life, it is literally in the past. So when I know that we've really cleared something, when I start working with the memory and somebody even just thinks about it and they go to a 10 level of stress, by the time we're done working with that memory, they will be able to tell me the memory and have no physical response. It is finally in the past. It is done, right? Doesn't that sound awesome? Permanent. So the acupoints are important because, obviously it's the philosophy behind tapping. We use the traditional Chinese medicine. These acupoints are said to be endpoints of inherent pathways, energy pathways. If you think about it like, we know that our nervous system, our heart, we have all these different electrical systems in our body. When we measure an EEG or an EKG, we're measuring waves of energy. But if you think about these pathways being like sending an email through the body rather than snail mail, like the hormone system is thought to be more like, a slower, still very important, but it's a slower system, and this is like sending an email of information just instantly. When you have stress, when you have memories that are kind of out there that haven't been processed, it creates clogs in the energy system. And there's been research recently, a 10-year study that they did at Harvard on acupuncture. And what they found over and over again is that when you stimulate acupoints, it deactivates the limbic system in the brain, which is part of that amygdala area. Okay, where we're holding on to memory, where we're going into that fight or flight, it deactivates it. And they did this at Harvard. I mean, people are really digging in and studying this stuff and finding over and over again that it's real. So let's go ahead and learn the tapping points. I'm going to show you guys the points. I mentioned earlier, but not everybody was in here. There's a sheet in the back. I didn't do any handouts today because I thought we would just save some trees and you guys wouldn't have to carry stuff around. But if you would like me to send you an email with the tapping points on it, with a quick start guide, how to use tapping on your own, just sign up your email in the back. Or if you signed up at my booth, that'll work too. I'm going to send the same thing. So, all right, so I'm going to have you guys actually mirror me, and I'm going to teach you the tapping points. Okay? Let's just put this out here. It feels so weird when you start doing this. I literally thought the first time I was doing this, I was like following a video. I thought that there was someone reporting me. I was like, this cannot be real. Like, I'm on candid camera. I'm going to be, like, Ellen's going to jump out of a closet. I don't know. Something is not right here. So it feels weird. Let's just put that out there. So the first one is on the side of the hand. This pinky side, and just take, it doesn't matter which hand, just reach around with your other one, 3 or 4 fingers, and just gently tap there. Okay, in Chinese medicine, this is the Heart Meridian. So, when you carry a lot in that heart center, you might feel that starting to change when you tap here. Okay. The next point is on top of the head, right? And this is when it really starts to feel good. You're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right in the center of the head. Yeah. Doesn't matter, you can, just gentle pressure. As you're working through different emotions, you'll notice you'll like do it harder or softer. It changes. Like, mad. And then the next one's on the inside of the eyebrow. And again, 2 or 3 fingers. Just right here where your eyebrow starts. Yep. Right there. The next one's on the outside of the eye. And when I work with people in my office, I tap with them the whole time so they don't feel goofy by themselves. And then the next one's under the eye. And in Chinese medicine, this is a stomach point. And it's a fear point. So have you ever noticed that fear, a lot of times you feel that stomach like clench right there? So this is a great point if that's something that you experience a lot, if you have stomach pain. Or if you're a scaredy cat like me and have a lot of fear. How's it going? And then under the nose. Yeah. And then on the crease of the chin there. Yeah. And then under the collarbone. And if you rub in that area, it's just that hollow under there. A lot of times that's tender in there. And if it's tender for you, that is just a sign that you need to work that one a little bit more. You tap on it or just kind of lightly rub it. But that means you've got some blockages in there. I mean, lymph gets stuck in there and all kinds of stuff. But the more you do it, the more it'll move through and it won't be tender anymore. And then the last point is under the arm. It's kind of nipple line under the armpit. And you can do on the same side. I'm not really all that endowed, so I can reach right across. It's no problem here. You can do that same side. This feels like goofy to me, but some people don't have a choice because they can't reach across. Okay. And then we'll just take a breath. Okay. So those are the tapping points. Sometimes even just tapping on them, we haven't even done the process yet, but you'll kind of start to feel yourself melt a little bit. Does anybody feel a little more relaxed just from tapping? A little bit? Yeah. Pretty common. Again, we're just sending a calming signal through our body. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm saying it feels a little more like I'm woken up.
Oh, good. A little more alert. Yeah. Just kind of gets the brain reawakened. Cool. She said she feels a little bit more alert. So that's a picture just of these meridians run all over our body, but those are the ones that, are in and around our head. And you can kind of see how these pathways are just all over the place. I kind of love the traditional Chinese medicine stuff, but I'm not going to bore you with that. We don't have enough time. But it's really interesting. All the meridians connect with different organs in the body, and also have certain emotions attached to them. And I just find that when I work with people, it's like when they're having a specific pain, the emotion will go with it. It lines up. And I've been doing this long enough that it's like I don't even question it anymore. It's just like, wow, that is really amazing. This stuff that they've been doing for thousands of years is pretty legit. Okay, so the basic process is going to be stating a problem. So whatever it is, we're going to start really broad and just say stress, right, or anxiety. You're going to state the problem and follow it with some sort of affirmation. So we'll say, even though I have this stress, I'm going to be okay. Okay. You can change that affirmation to whatever you want. It could be, I accept myself anyway. Eventually, we'd like to get to the point where it's like, even though I have this stress, I love and accept myself anyway. Sometimes that's hard in the beginning, so I don't usually make people go to that jump right away. But we'll just start with something really broad. So you state the problem, follow it with an affirmation, and then we're going to tap through the points. Okay? So everybody just I'm going to say something and have you repeat it back to me. And let's just try this out on just saying stress, okay? Actually, no. We're kind of running short on time, so I'm going to do something different. We're going to try it, but we're going to do something. Yeah, we're going to do this other thing. Okay, so we're going to give this a try. I want everybody to pick something out there that is just annoying to you, okay? So this could be, it's annoying, that noise. Like there's a certain noise that you hear in the kitchen. Or it's annoying that, something smallish though. And I can tell you can't pick a person. You can't pick an annoying person. I know everyone's like, no, that would be like a whole 4-month package of working together. Because when you think about it, okay, if there's an annoying person, we're not just working on that person. We're working on 45 annoying things that they do, right?
So you can pick one thing.
Yeah, so for our purposes now, tapping works really well on very specific things. So picking a whole person is a little bit too broad. Now, if you were to come into my office, we would start with that person, and then your mind would start throwing forward the details of what we would need to follow. Okay, so I would ask at that point, when have you felt like this before, and who does this person remind you of? Because chances are that person that's driving you crazy has either been in your life for a really long time, or they remind you of someone that you grew up with. It's amazing. It's like, woo, it's not just that person stresses me out, it's that actually they're reminding me of my sister when she would da-da-da-da-da. It's all connected. So go ahead and I want you all to go ahead and close your eyes and think of something. You can pick something annoying or, slightly frustrating. But I want you to just allow your mind to show you kind of on that movie screen. See if you can get a visual of that in your head, of that thing that's annoying. And just let yourself connect to it. And then I want you to just feel your physical body and see what your body does when you connect to that thought. And see if anything gets tight or heavy or just feels kind of nervous. Okay. And in your mind, I want you to rate how annoying it is, 0 to 10, 10 being, it's just off the charts, driving me crazy. And then go ahead and open your eyes for me. And go ahead and just kind of shout out some numbers so I know kind of where we're starting. How annoying is it? What numbers?
4, 9, 9.
I've got full spectrum. 4s and 9s. And did you guys feel it in your physical body?
Yes.
Yeah, so start again, just kind of let me know where you feel it.
Shoulders.
Like tensing in your shoulders? Yeah? Stomach?
Clenching my jaw.
What was yours?
Jaw.
Jaw. Oh, clenching jaw. Yeah. Do you have TMJ or anything like that? Yeah. Well, that's a really subtle place that we'll feel stuff, and sometimes it doesn't register for some reason for us, like during the day. We don't notice that we're clenching. Anything over here? Forehead. Okay. So that's just a really simple example of my thought is connected to my nervous system, and that's feeling it in my physical body. Okay? All right, so everybody tap on the side of the hand with me, and I'm just going to take you through, I'm just going to voice some things that we would normally voice in our head when things are kind of annoying, okay? So just repeat after me. Even though I have this annoying thing, and it's driving me crazy, I can even feel it in my body, I accept myself anyway. Even though it's so annoying. Really So much I can even feel it. It drives me crazy. But it's going to be okay. I accept myself anyway. So the basic process, you state this 3 times while you're tapping on the side of the hand. Okay. So even though it's so annoying, I can really feel it. I wonder if I could accept myself anyway. Okay, so just tap on the top of the head. Oh, it's annoying. Inside the eyebrow. I can feel it in my body. Everywhere. Outside the eye. It's driving me crazy. Under the eye. So annoying. Under the nose. It's bothering me. On the chin. It's so annoying. Under the collarbone. It is so freaking annoying. Under the arm. It is driving me crazy. And I would throw an F-bomb in there if that's... because, man, that moves some emotion. We'll just take a breath. And I want you to close your eyes again and tune into that thing again. Now, here's a couple things can happen. We start to feel better. That's great. That's what we're going for. Or it actually starts to unlock it and shows us, man, I'm not even annoyed. I'm just really pissed off. Sometimes it'll go up. So that'll happen too. But that's just showing you, like, I'm actually unlocking what's really there. So I want you to just tune in and focus on that thing again. And I want you to just see if you can feel it the same way in your body. So go ahead and keep your eyes closed, but I want to see a show of hands if it has gone down, the physical intensity of it. Awesome. Pretty much everyone. Has anybody gone up? Yeah. Are you feeling it more physically now too? More mentally? Okay. Yeah. There's a couple of different personalities. Did you feel it physically before? Yes. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, so the goal with tapping, we like to see them both shift at the same time, because most of the time when you break the physical connection, a lot of times the mental connection to it will go too. But if it's something that's really, like, it's probably connected to something bigger, we can break the physical connection, but our mind says, no, but I'm still mad about that. Or I'm still, you know what I mean? I'm still annoyed. But it's good. We know that there was a shift because our physical body changed. Okay? So just throw out some numbers for me again. We started at like 4s and 9s. What was it? 1?
2.
Oh, great. Okay, let's do one more round and just see if we can get it to 0. Why not, right? Tap on the side of the hand. Even though it's still really annoying. Still drives me crazy. I accept myself anyway. It's still really annoying. But I'm going to be okay. I can still feel it. It's still annoying. But I'm going to be okay. Okay, now top of the head, so annoying. Inside the eyebrow, so annoying. Outside the eye, driving me crazy. Under the eye, so annoying. Under the nose, so annoying. The chin, so annoying. Under the collarbone, driving me crazy. Under the arm, so annoying. I'm going to take a breath. Yeah. Feel how still it is in here? You guys feel more relaxed? Yeah. So I start with something very, very small like that because tapping has this amazing ability to take you deep into your subconscious, sometimes faster than we like. Okay? It goes deep really, really fast. So while you have the ability to use tapping as a self-help technique, and I absolutely want you to, I want you to save the big T traumas, abuse, PTSD, even major car accidents. I want you to save that for a professional, okay? Because we want to keep you safe. I call this over-the-counter tapping because anybody can do it, right? Everybody has access to it. But, you know, for those bigger issues, it's good to have somebody to help you along the way. I obviously do this. Nikki back here is another tapping professional. She's a coach. There are people, this works just as well over the phone and over Skype. There are people all over the place doing this. The most important thing you can do is find somebody that resonates with you. But I'm telling you, this stuff can change your life. And like I said, when you string it together with all that other stuff, that good diet and getting some exercise, things change really, really quickly. So we just, when you're working on something, it's really just a rinse and repeat. You focus on something, your mind will start throwing in other things. And if you were sitting with me in the office, I would say, yes, let's follow that. Back on that trail. And all of a sudden we're tapping on something annoying, and like I said, like your mom pops in your head. And I'm like, ooh, okay. And we'll just follow that. And before we know it, you're like, oh my God, I just had a memory of being in second grade and my mom yelled at me when I didn't pick up my dishes. To an adult, we're like, well, that's not really a trauma. But when you're a kid, it is. It was traumatic to the system. It's tappable. It's totally tappable. And that's the kind of stuff that hangs on, and our mind will tell us it isn't important and it's not still affecting us. But the reality is that it is. Down in our body, it still is. And you just keep repeating the process. So just some closing thoughts, and I'll let you go. Man, I stayed on time too. I never do. That was good. You're not broken. Whatever stress that you feel, whatever habits you have, whatever patterns you have are there for a reason. They might be outdated. They might not be working anymore. But you're not broken. And this stuff, you can reprogram yourself. There is an element of, this is just who I am. This is the genes that I came in with. This is part of my, just my essence. Yeah, that's true. But man, there's a lot we can do with it too. Like I said, I'm a natural scaredy cat. And standing up and speaking in front of people used to be really hard for me. But I pushed myself, so that I could be free in that area. And now I freaking love it. It's weird. Like, even when I say I hated it, I'm like, no, I like it. I'll do it all day long. It does look strange, but it works. And like I said, people might be like, what? I was a closet tapper for like months before I told my husband, it's like, I'm tapping for my stress. And he's like, what? You're doing what? I'm like, yeah, let me show you. Now I just walk around the house, and he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, what? And he's like, you're tapping. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just tapping. I'm like just self-regulating. Which, by the way, we do. How often, like when you feel stressed, you kind of grab those same points? Or like you see kids that are tapping their fingers. You have meridian points on the end of your fingers, by the way. We're self-regulating. Or kids that, they rock, they're just calming their nervous system. Our body is so intelligent. Oh, yeah, I talked about the over-the-counter tapping. So we've got a few minutes. The ultimate goal is emotional freedom, but I am telling you, this really has the ability to open you up to full spectrum living. Wherever you feel free, you can break through it. Wherever you feel grief, where you felt like you could never move forward, you can break through it. Doesn't mean that you'll stop being sad for the loss of someone, but you will stop carrying it in that very heavy emotional way. And it's like you can be free to move about the cabin again. Stress is sticky. It holds on. And this can really do some amazing things for you guys. So we've got a few minutes. If you guys have any questions. Yeah.
I have a comment.
Oh, yeah.
I would suggest that maybe people might want to do this first thing in the morning. That's what
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Maybe 5 minutes.
Absolutely. She said she would suggest doing it first thing in the morning. I think that is brilliant. Just that morning ritual of kind of getting your energy flowing. It's a great idea. Yeah, let's go here again.
What does EFT stand for?
Emotional freedom technique. Yeah, I'm sorry if I skipped over that. That's kind of a big point. Yeah.
Do you do it on both sides, or do you have to keep it equal?
You don't have to. No, you can do either side. You can even switch, wherever in between. It doesn't really matter. The meridians run on both sides of the body. And I truly believe that, again, that innate body intelligence will tell you which side needs it. And so if you, at some point, feel like all of a sudden, you can do two hands, too. Just kind of follow that intuitive sense of what feels right for you.
It doesn't matter if you're doing it on one
Nope. Mm-mm. Then, I will try to play with, if I have pain on one side, I will kind of play with, tapping on that side and see if it makes a difference. But typically it doesn't. It's because it's all communicating in different ways. Yeah.
Are there any videos or books?
There are a ton of them. I'm glad you asked that. If you go to my website, it's kellyhowcoaching.com. I have a resources page that lists a lot of the books. The Tapping Solution is always my first go-to book because they outline how to use tapping for self-help in a very understandable, doable, accessible way. So I would always recommend that. If you just Google EFT, or if you say EFT for anxiety or EFT for insomnia, you will get a bazillion videos. You get a bunch of them. So yeah, you can get those on YouTube. Yeah.
So if you're like in the middle of this fight or flight response, is it like best to just like stop and start tapping, or is it more of like a preventative, do it a few times
Both.
a day? Or,
Yeah, both.
And then like I'm thinking like with kids, like if my kids are in the middle.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So the question is, do we do it when we're activated, right, in that fight or flight response, or do we do it preventatively? And I would say both. So the best time to tap is when you're activated, which is why I'm having you think and imagine things, because I'm actually trying to activate it through your system. That is the best time to tap. So especially for kids, like when my kids are in full-out freak-out mode, right, like when they're tantruming, which actually doesn't happen very often anymore because my youngest is 8. But I actually would just let them lay. That's that same like calm down, and they're like, wah! Like that doesn't work. So I would like lay them down and just tap through the points and just let them release.
So do you do it for them?
I do. So when they're little, and my youngest is 8, and he's old enough that he can tap on himself now. He still prefers me to tap on him. My 11-year-old absolutely can tap on himself. It's different for each kid, but I do feel like so I have a 13-year-old, and there's been times when he's even been kind of emotional, and I will just have him lay down on the couch and sit next to him and just let him cry, Let him be mad. Let him just move through whatever the organic emotions are. When you can actually feel them while you're tapping, that's the best time to release it.
So you have them do the talking too? Or
It kind of depends. Sometimes if they're just really, like I can usually tell which emotion it is, so I will have them repeat back to me as I tap on them. Like, I'm so mad, I'm so mad, I'm so mad. They hurt my feelings. They stole my ball. They hurt my, you know what I mean? Whatever it is. And I'll let them move through it. Kids don't have all the years of compressed baggage that we do, so they move through things so fast. I have seen my sons release things, like them be like a 10, freaking out about something, and do 2 rounds, and they like yawn. Yawning is a wonderful sign that something has shifted. It's another thing that we don't really understand, right? Yawning. I know what yawning is. We're releasing something. I don't know, because I see it all the time. But they'll yawn, and then they'll be like, oh, I'm good now. And then they'll just walk off. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yeah.
So I can think of using this on several different scales, like you said, working mental health. So it
Yeah.
sounds like it's something I can teach to my young clients who get upset at the boundaries when they can't play Fortnite past 9 p.m.
Totally.
They don't like it, so they get tapped.
Totally. No, yeah, that's a great example.
But then at the same time, I have some severe trauma, abuse history, and things. So you said that, like, need to go to a professional or like your active training or whatever.
Yeah. There are some wonderful people training, but yes, absolutely, that abuse and trauma stuff, those kids would respond really well to it.
What about maybe those same kids, but just teaching them the tap, I guess, for those lesser things, because obviously they're always in that.
Yeah, I've taught some kids. I go to the kids' elementary school sometimes and teach tapping, and they like it. And then I get these letters. They're like, I taught my brother how to do it, and I was sad the other day, and I tapped and I felt better. And yeah, just teaching them to kind of. I think that part of the gold in it is giving them a tool to actually acknowledge the emotion, but then also using it so that it doesn't take over. It's like, yes, you're mad. Let's do something about it. And then, like I said, they might still be mad, but they're not like in that full on like kind of feeling. So yeah, I would say absolutely teaching it to them is.
Well, then we get to teach the parents too. So
Uh-huh.
to teach the parents techniques to use with the child.
Yes.
Because obviously they're always going to be therapists.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's guided. Because I've had that conversation before. That don't just tell them to calm down or just breathe or calm down and explain things.
Right. That just like bumps it up even higher. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I'm like, get it together! And then everything just. Yeah, we're all guilty of it. It's okay. Yeah.
I learned tapping a while ago, and people do not need to believe this when they do it. It doesn't make any difference. They do it, they get the results.
Yep.
Secondly,
So true.
this is incredibly effective for heart rate variability.
Yes.
It corrects it almost instantly.
Yes. So yeah, he's got a great point, because I get that question all the time. Kelly, maybe it's just placebo? And my answer to that is always, well, everything is placebo, right? Like, you can't take an ibuprofen without a belief that it's either going to work or it's not. Everything is affected by placebo, but you do not have to believe in this. It will still work. It is that much more effective than placebo. So,
My heart rate's in the 50s now,
yeah. Where is it normally?
mid-60s.
Okay. Yeah, we've already bumped it down a little bit. Got one in the back here.
I get hung up on the words.
Yeah.
I get the gist of where you're coming from with all this, but, so there's pain, there's weight, there's stress, there's...
Yeah.
So, and I know you said same problem, and then
Yeah.
your affirmations, but then it seems like when we're tapping in the eyes and blah, 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 we're saying all these negative things.
Right.
So what's the right formula?
Yeah. So you actually want to voice the negative. That's really, really important. Tapping on positive statements will kind of supercharge the positive statements. Are we okay? Fine. But you want to say the negative. Okay. So because the negative is actually what's going to activate it normally in the system. And I always say to people, don't let the words stop you from tapping, because what we're saying is less important than what you're feeling. So if you can just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Like, what emotion am I feeling? Or even if you can't pick out the emotion, if you can just be like, where do I feel this in my body? And sometimes when we're so activated and we can't pick out emotion and we're just kind of in that head spinning place, I'll be like, just tap and be like, ugh, because that helps it like shake through. As strange as that sounds, it just kind of, it's really about, what are my real feelings? Oh, I feel sad. I feel tearful. Sad. That's all you have to say. You don't even have to say anything at all. It's just about, like I said, when you can tap and you're activated in that emotion, that's the best time to do it. There is something magical about moving it through your voice. So especially like I have thyroid stuff and I have a very blocked throat area. And I can tell you that when I say it out loud, I'll get like a whole nother burst of emotion with it. And then if I say it to someone, that gets a whole nother level. So it's kind of, you can do it in your head, but if you want to take it to the next level, go ahead and say it out loud. Try and, say it on somebody or just telling them.
Is there a strategy if like a child is in the fight or flight mode a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a certain strategy there?
You can teach them to finger tap. If it's just kind of a constant thing, so if they're sitting there at school finger tapping, the sides of the fingers have those meridian endpoints. For people that have OCD, those are such constant thoughts that just that constant finger tapping or like kind of pressing in that nail bed is a good one. The more you tap, the more regulated your nervous system gets. So for a kid that's in that constant fight or flight, I think asking them how does that feel? Are you afraid? You can give them some options, right? Because sometimes they can't tell. Do you feel afraid? Do you just feel nervous? And usually they can kind of pick one out and be like, yeah, let's go with that. And then you just say nervous, afraid. And like I said, they don't have all the years of holding on to it, so they usually release it back better and faster than adults do. Yeah. One more here.
It's very effective for addictions, too.
Yes, I am actually helping. He said it's very effective for addictions, and that is absolutely true, because addiction at the core is about trauma. You don't hear a lot of people talk about that, but it's about emotional wounding, physical wounding that hasn't been healed. And so they're seeking self-medication, and tapping is, I think, better than anything for that. I'm helping my sister quit smoking right now, actually.
Okay, so for instance, the one I chose was, we have a teenager who, like, if the curfew's midnight, she comes home at 12:05. Next night,
Just pushing that boundary.
So she always does this stuff. And so it's like, obviously, the first time I'm nice, the second time, eventually it's anger and stuff that I feel, and then that stresses me out, but her behavior does not change no matter if you take it away or give it back. So, like, I totally understand and believe in this and everything. What is like the goal when I'm not able to control the stressor?
Yes, understandable. That would actually be the next thing to tap on, is I'm out of control. Because that's a really uncomfortable feeling, right? Like, I have no control over this. I'm out of control. I have no control. She's not listening to me. Then I would say for you, because all we can do, unfortunately, is our own work. We can only work on ourselves and our own resilience. And if, especially for a teenager, if they're not open to working on their own stuff, we have to just do our own work to kind of like hold our space and do what we can to get by. But I would like something, I can't remember what it was, but something about what you said. I want you to kind of maybe do some journaling and write down, who does that remind you of? When have I felt like this before? Like I wasn't being respected. That's the word that popped in my head. Like I wasn't being respected. Who's disrespected me in the past? You know, who's pushed these boundaries? Because I feel like it's an older, more familiar. And that's when you do tapping on whoever that person is and that older experience, that's when the neural pathways start to break free really, really quickly. And your daughter comes home and you still know, like cognitively, like, man, she is still pushing it. But it's not an activated 10, like I want to wring her neck, you know, because it moves through that old emotion. Yeah.
Just super quick, is it necessary to go through all of the tapping?
It's ideal.
But it's not socially, like, a child in a classroom,
Right.
not socially acceptable.
Totally.
To start tapping on their head.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
gonna
Nope.
enter into
Good
a
question.
whole new-
Good question. Yeah. It's. I mean, you know, from the Chinese medicine perspective, it's great to hit all those points so that you're activating more of the meridians and moving that more. But yeah, like picking one point or doing the finger tapping. No amount of tapping is going to be bad. Like you can't overdo it. You can't do it wrong. And so any amount of tapping is going to be a soothing signal to the nervous system.
I didn't know if it was a process or if you could
It
just
is. Yeah, I mean, it is a process, and ideally you would want to do, you know, and if you were working with younger kids, I would say what I've done with them in the past is do like 3 points, you know, with the side of the hand. It's like, they're like, what is happening? You know, just keep it simple for them. But just that calming signal, even if it's only coming from one place, you know, and I'm doing that, like I carry a lot in my chest there. That's a great one. It's not an official tapping point, but I do that one a lot. I'm like, that just feels good. You know, feels good for me. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you guys so much.